I might be done though. Let's see. Hi, everybody. This is Cheryl Abram and Life Without a Witness. I told you all I would be back today. I think I said I'd be back at 5, but this was actually scheduled for 5:30. But Jerry, I am going to review your book. Like I mentioned yesterday, when I first saw now the Diunital group you have in Facebook, and I'm gonna be sure to put the links for that in the description of this video. But so you've had that group for a while, and I know that me and Justin are in the group and some other people and all that. But when I saw you wrote a book, I was like, okay, here we go. Another white dude writing a book about Black folks, trying to tell us who and what we are. Okay, I'm just being honest. I love you. I love you, Jerry. Okay, but that's what I thought. Okay. And I read it, and I really do. I appreciate what you've done here. It's quite enlightening. It's not prescriptive. Like you're not telling, Black folks what they are or anything like that. I really enjoy the way you did this. And so we're going to go through it. Okay. And the resources you used, it even compelled me to go further into that. Hold on a second. Let me check. Let me make sure my volume is working right. All right. Because y'all know, like I said, I'm notorious for doing a whole video with no volume. I should have done this before, but let me do it now before I go any further. Okay. Okay. Looks like we have. Okay. Looks like y'all can hear me. All right. I just checked my speakers. Okay. So let's get started with this. So Jerry's book, as you saw from the thumbnail, is called Diunital Living, Self-Knowledge, Divine Infinite Mind, an Afrocentric Path to Everlasting Happiness. Okay. So now I'm going to go through each chapter of the book and just tell you some of the things it said, my thoughts about it, and all the links are going to be in the description for you all once I'm done with this video. Okay. And as I was saying, because of what you did, I looked into other people, some that I had never heard of before, or heard of, but not really read their stuff, the way you had. So I thank you for that. Like, I really do appreciate that. All right. Now, I already have a video on this channel about racism and non-duality. That's what it's titled, The Racism and Non-Duality. Because as you all know, if you've read Firing God, at the end of the book, I asked the question. I said, where are all the Black people? Okay. We just can't get a break, like where we at? And because it's very white out there. So, but I say in that video, and I see here, and I'll list them here, that this is actually being talked about in the non-dual community a little bit. Okay, a little bit is being talked about, and now that I'm here, it's definitely being talked about. So let me tell you some of the stuff that's already out there. Making the Invisible Visible, Healing Racism in Buddhist Communities. Okay. Eckhart Tolle, he has videos on YouTube, and he may have written something too, I'm not sure, but it's called On Racism, Ego, and Awareness. Okay. Now, I listened to some of his video, and what he's saying is really what James Baldwin says in his documentary, the documentary on Netflix called I Am Not Your Negro. Okay. And James Baldwin was an activist. He's an author, a speaker, an orator, he's just a wonderful, wonderful person who lived around the same time as Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and other individuals, during the civil rights era. But Eckhart says, people don't relate to you. They relate to their idea of you, which is what he says, which is exactly what James Baldwin said in I Am Not Your Negro in that interview he did, where he said, listen, You see a nigger and I can't do nothing about that. Okay. Number one, I don't know what that is. And number two, that's not me. Okay. You, the white man has created something that they're afraid of. Okay. And they've projected it on to Black people. And they expect us to fix it. Okay. But he's like, I can't fix it. You have to fix it because you made it. So this is really what Eckhart Tolle is saying, as well, and that's just also Racism and the Self, which is a science and non-duality series. I didn't see it. You got to pay for it, and I wasn't interested in doing that. But apparently, it's a series that they've created with this group of people to talk about racism and non-duality. And then in 2016, y'all know I was at the Science and Non-Duality Conference, and I did a talk about inequalities and the whiteness of the non-dual community as well. Okay, so let's get to, let me see, is that all I wanted to say for this? No. So one of the people, before I get into Jerry's book, one of the people that he mentions in here is, I think Jerry mentions it. I don't know. We'll see when we get to it. But W.e.b. Du Bois. Okay. In 1903, he wrote The Souls of Black Folk. Now, this W.e.b. Du Bois is a very, very interesting person because of when he lived. Like, he was born in like 1893 or 96, something like that, but in the late 1800s, and he died in 1965. So the stuff that was going on, so he helped do the things that would come together to create the NAACP. He actually wrote a letter to Malcolm X. I mean, if you just look at the span of his life and how he was involved in it, I mean, imagine being born in the late 1800s and dying in 1965. There's a lot going on. Okay, in that span of time, there was a lot going on. So he wrote The Souls of Black Folk, where he talked about double consciousness, how being Black in America means you have to be two people. Like you have to live two lives. Okay, being Black in America. In that book, he talked about the two world thesis, where he talks about the veil of color. Now, there are three things related to the veil of color. One is our literal dark skin. Okay, the beautiful melanin. Okay, that we bring with us. Okay. Number two is that white America does not see us as truly American. Okay, and number three is our inability to see ourselves as something other than what we have been told we are. Okay, those are the three elements of the veil of color. So now I'm going to get into what Jerry was talking about in his book, Diunital Living. Okay, so in chapter one is called Diunital Living. That diunital is coined by Vernon Dixon in the 1960s. It's a both and worldview, okay, versus either or. So it's either Black or it's white. Diunital says it's both Black and white, okay, or up and down, or right and left. There is no either or, okay. So, and our existence, according to Mr. Dixon, is naturally diunital, meaning we live two lives in one. Okay. And this is for two main reasons: because our lack of exclusion in American culture, and this is just native to our African identity. Okay. Now, Jerry uses an example of, let me pull up her picture so y'all can see what she looks like. This is Here you go, Marie Laveau. Marie Laveau. So we, at least I, actually know a lot about Marie Laveau because she's a voodoo queen, very famous voodoo lady in Louisiana, which is where I'm from, in New Orleans, right? And she's also a devout Catholic. So you can be a devout Catholic and a well-known voodoo queen, apparently. Okay. So someone, and Jerry goes on to say in the book that someone can be racist and a good person at the same time. Okay. But so let me tell you here what James Baldwin, which I love, that he says about that. And I feel like being racist is, if you say you're racist, you're taking the easy way out. You know, I'm thinking about making a video called "I'd Rather Be Racist." Okay, because what James Baldwin said in his speech years ago, he was in a group of Black people. Now, when I first heard this, I'm like, I can't believe this man is saying this in front of these people who had just come from a march, you know, with the water holes and people sicking dogs on them and all that, you know. He said in that crowd, he said, there is no racist problem. There is no racism problem. He said the problem is that people are not telling the truth. You know that that person hanging outside, you know that that man is your brother. You know that that person, okay, that you've just murdered is your child. You know this. He said the problem is you don't want to tell the truth about what's really going on. You would rather be racist than a murderer of your own child. You would rather be racist than a murderer of your own family members. You would rather be racist, wouldn't you? You know, so that's what he was saying. There is no racism problem. Okay. The problem is we are family in this country, like literal. Okay. Literally family in this country. And you're allowing your family to just be treated any old way. You know, and you a lot of times are promoting it. He said, that's the problem. Y'all lying. That's the problem. All right. So let me go on and see what, so Jerry in chapter 2 is called One Yet Many. And now I really like this. In the book, he says the purpose of either or is to repress. Okay. Now, Jerry talks a lot about Dr. Meyers. What's her whole name? Linda Meyers, I believe. I should have written that somewhere. I think it's Linda Meyers. Oh, wait, let me see. Yep, Dr. Linda James Meyers. That's her name. She says, so the purpose of either or is to repress. Dr. Meyers says, when you control someone's mind, you don't have to relegate them to an inferior status. They will seek it out for themselves, which goes back to something I talk about. I think it's on this channel too. It may be on my cyber channel as well. I don't know. Power distance. So power distance, Malcolm Gladwell speaks a lot about power distance in his book. I think Blink is his book, one of the wonderful books that he's written, where he's talking about plane crashes, the reasons why planes crash. Okay, you would think it would have something to do with technical problems. Okay, but no, the primary reason why planes crash is lack of communication of the pilots. Okay. And he gave an amazing example in the speech that he gave about a crash that happened, I believe, in the 70s or 80s with an airline that's no longer in business now. But what was happening, because you know they have the black box, and the black box records everything. What they found out was the plane was being flown by individuals from Colombia. The captain and the co-captain were from Colombia. And there was a problem. Okay, but the co-pilot was not communicating what he knew to be wrong to the pilot because there was a power dynamic there. Like, you don't You don't say certain things to a person that's higher level than you, okay? You let them make the decision they want to make and you shut your mouth, okay? So what Malcolm Gladwell was saying is close to what Dr. Linda Meyers here is saying. If I can control you to the point to where you put me on a pedestal, okay? I don't have to work to put you below me. You're gonna do that yourself, okay? As long as I've let you know that it's, you know, because I'm a man, or because I'm white, or because I got more money, or because my last name is this or whatever, you put me on a pedestal, okay? And at the same time, you put yourself below me. I ain't got to do nothing. All right. So, and that's power distance. Power distance requires cooperation of the tyrant and those being terrorized. Okay. Both of them have a role. And it won't work if each of them doesn't play their role. You can't be better than me if I don't play the role of being less than you. All right. You understand? Yes. Okay. So, what else does he say here? The non-dominant culture. So Dr. Meyers says the non-dominant culture is devalued, erased, and ignored through assimilation. Now, I see that a lot here in the non-dual community when it comes to who you hear talking about non-duality and whose voices are amplified about this, okay? And I see what's going on, okay? I absolutely 100% do. And for all the reasons that I'm reading right now from this book and from Dr. Meyers, okay? Because those of us who have opportunity to amplify our voice and voices of those, okay, who are typically marginalized, we feel like if I don't have a white voice speaking over here, then what I'm saying is not heard, it's not valued, and it's not as true. Come on now, tell the truth and shame the devil. All right. If I don't, you know, which is another, so let me tell you real quick over here. I looked at this professor, what's his name? Because this ain't just Cheryl talking about this, okay? What is his name? Dr. Joshua Smith. So I watched his lecture. Okay. What's wrong, bro? Turn the fan on. So I watched his lecture, and I loved it. The child, listen, I said, listening to this man's lecture makes me want to go back to school, because I love instructors who are just passionate about their craft. I tell you the truth. This man was running up and down the doggone aisle. I mean, he was just passionate. Okay. So Dr. Joshua Smith said, we in this country, we've inherited something, because we know we hear a lot about why y'all still talking about, why y'all still talking about, why y'all keep bringing that up. And you know what I mean? He said, we've inherited something. He said, nobody in the audience that he was talking to, and he did this lecture last year. He said, nobody in this audience was there when this country was discovered or invaded, okay? Nobody was there. Nobody in this room was around or had anything to do with the signing of the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence. Y'all wasn't even thought about, okay? And neither was he, and neither are you, okay, that I'm talking to now. Wasn't even thought about. You were not there, okay? He said, no white person that hears me talking now has ever been the owner of slaves. I doubt that 99.9%, okay? Especially if you're an American. Ain't nobody out here, you never bought a person. You ain't got people on your, you know, whatever doing, you know, stuff for you the way slaves do, and you're not paying, you know what I'm saying? None of that nobody in here is a slave owner. Nobody. Y'all didn't have anything to do with that. But he said, however, and he said, this is why history You have to know history because history gives you context. He said, if your parents have a business, let's say Jeff Bezos is your father, okay? He has millions. You hear me? And he leaves everything to you. He said, you will inherit those millions, but you will also inherit the lawsuits that Amazon has against it. You will also inherit the debts. Any debts that Amazon has debts. Okay, don't think that they don't. That's yours too. You're not just going to get the profits. You're going to get all that other stuff. So he said that that's the same way it is with every person right now that lives in the United States of America. Because we lay claim to the rights and privileges of being an American, with those inherited rights come inherited debts, lawsuits, and responsibility. So ain't no such thing as why y'all still talking about it. No, because nothing has been done about it. Okay. And if we're going to claim the rights of an American, like we do, you got to claim all the responsibilities as well, that your parents died, with these debts on their books. Okay. So when it comes to, let me get back to where I was over here. The non-dominant culture, devalues and erases and all that stuff that's similar. That stuff has to be addressed, okay? Because it's not in the past. It's not. You think, if you inherit the millions from Jeff after he passed, you can go to the debt collectors and be like, oh, he gone. That's in the past. No. This debt is still owed. Okay, you're gonna have to pay this. You know what I'm saying? You got to take all of it. You can't just take the profits. You can't just take the rights that come with being an American. You got to take them debts and the responsibilities as well. Okay. Let me see what else. Okay. Opposites confirm each other's existence. I talked about that. Like we talked about that on this channel too. Diunital consciousness is not merely tolerance for differences, but enjoyment, support, and encouragement of them. I absolutely love that. Diunital consciousness is not merely tolerance for differences, but enjoyment, support, and encouragement of them. Let me let you look at a graphic that's in the book. So this is one of the images in the book. And here you have Afrocentric Paradigm consists of both divine infinite mind and scientific analysis, and linked by the diunital worldview. Okay. And as you go in the book, more into the book, Jerry, he offers images that expound upon each of these terms. So the Afrocentric paradigm is a conceptual system whose aim is to structure reality such that man or woman can achieve everlasting peace and happiness. Now, this is from Dr. Meyers. Okay. That's how Dr. Meyers explains it. And then if you go further down, okay, and you look at the diunital worldview, it's a center that doesn't create a synthesis of science and divine infinite mind, doesn't try to blend the two, doesn't create a hybrid of the two, but leaves the two as they are. I love that. So when I say, because non-duality, we interpret that as not two, but not two doesn't mean one. It doesn't. It just means not two. Okay. What else is not two? 3, 10, 0, -5, a whole bunch of shit is not two. Okay, so you can't just go immediately and say not two means one. No, it does. I mean, it means that and a gazillion other things. Okay. All right, let me see. Chapter 3. Self-knowledge, divine infinite mind, the teachings of Dr. Linda Joyce Meyers. Okay. So Dr. Linda Joyce Meyers has a YouTube video that is exquisite. Somebody has done an interview with her. It was done in 2012. Okay. And she talks about how she came up with this Afrocentric paradigm. Her story is just fascinating. Please go watch it. I'm going to put the link in the description of the video so you can see it. And just very, very briefly, she talks about having grown up, I think in Kansas, something like that. Her father was a preacher, and she said when she was little, she always wondered, why do people treat my father so badly? Like he's a nice guy. You know, why is he treated so badly by white people? So those experiences. So she goes on to say that what she discovered in her development of optimal psychology is what she calls it. That as long as you believe the five senses, then you will continue to have issues. As long as you believe that the only thing that is real, the only thing that you're capable of is what can be sensed, okay, by the big five, because we have more than five senses, but you know, what can be sensed in that regard is the only thing that's real. So that's going to continue to be a problem, okay? Let me see, fully integrates the spiritual and material. So optimal conceptual system fully integrates the spiritual and material, okay? And the challenge, she says, is overcoming conceptual incarceration. Don't you love that? I love that term, conceptual incarceration. Okay, I would have to start using that, right? Incarcerated by concepts. And she says that psychology is actually psychology of the soul. Okay. And she asks questions, why isn't racism a pathology? Because it's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. Any ism is crazy. Why isn't colonization wacko? She said. And it's not, because it's due to the worldview. Okay. All right. So let me see. Now, something else I looked into that was not in Jerry's book, but it's called holotropic, moving towards wholeness, and holotropic breathing and stuff like that. But Dr. Meyers says everything is consciousness, divine, infinite mind, everything is God, like whatever you want to call it, okay? Whatever you can say, everything is beings, okay? The point is everything is everything, okay? Let me see. So Dr. Meyers talks about the middle ground, divine, infinite mind. Jerry has this in his book too. And there's a hybrid that leaves the two as they are while holding the two as a single both and phenomena. So I think that's pretty much the gist of it, at least as far as I'm concerned. Leaves the two as they are, but holding them up as a both and, okay? Not an either or. All right? And they don't meld into each other and become one. No. Okay. They're as they are. All right. Let me see what else we have here. Discovery and inquiry are ongoing. Jerry says that in his book, and I absolutely love that. Inquiry is a process of rediscovery, not an event of discovery, or something that just happened once. Okay. And I find that this is when I say I fire God every day, like that's what's going on. Okay. I look at what I'm putting together, okay, what I'm putting together, what I'm creating, the story I'm telling, you know, and see, well, is this still useful for me to tell this story? Because if it's not, I could tell it differently. Why? Because not two doesn't mean one. Okay, that's why. We're manifesting all the time. And to stop it would be like the waves of the ocean stopping the waves of the ocean. Can you imagine the waves of the ocean working to stop the waves of the ocean? Okay. Okay, so that's, did I show y'all all the graphics? Let me pull this one up again, okay? So the book was great, you know, and I absolutely recommend you all go into it. And Jerry, you know, there's the books on Facebook. I'm sorry, the groups on Facebook. This book is free. I'm going to put the link in here, and I really recommend you read it. And some of this stuff, like, to be honest, some of this stuff I didn't get. I was like, what? Like, what does that mean? You know, but that's okay. And I think Jerry even acknowledges that at the end of the book, you know, where he says, you know, you might not get all this, but just, you know, take time to look into it and ask your own questions. You know what I mean? Like, this is not a Bible. A Bible isn't even a Bible. Okay. You know, there's nothing written that tells you how to live. I don't care what anybody tells you. There is nothing written that tells anybody how to live. Nothing. So all it can be is a life of discovery. Okay. That's really all it can be. And we can change our minds. Okay. All right, so that's all I have for you. Thank you, Jerry, for writing this book. It was really good. I really enjoyed it, and I appreciated all the people that you referenced in it, and because I was able to go look further into some of the stuff that they do, okay, and that they've done and written and said and all that. So, and I hope you all enjoyed as well. So I am going to go, but stay tuned for those links. I'll put them in, if not right after this, then a little bit later, so you can have them, okay? All right. So I will talk to y'all later. Okay. Have a good evening. Bye.